Bonnie. In laying out this sell sheet for Essentials, I'm realizing that we have multiple categories now, and was thinking about possibly putting each category as a tab on each sheet.
I think that makes a lot of sense. It really does.
Good, good. I'll continue with that then.
Okay, sounds like a plan. And I'm going to go play with embossing powders.
Great, that sounds like fun.
So come join me. Today I'm going to show you the basics of how to emboss using ink and embossing powder. If you're not familiar with embossing, seeing it for the first time is really cool. First thing that we're going to do is work with embossing ink. Embossing ink is actually a clear ink, which you'll see here in our big embossy ink pad, that you stamp up and apply to paper and then put colored powders over top of it. If you want to be able to see where your image is because you're not comfortable working with clear ink, we also sell a tinted embossing pad that shows you a light blue effect. But be aware, if you're working with tinted pads, if you're working with clear powders or light colored powders, you'll see the blue through it. So I prefer to work with the clear, so that's what we're going to do today. Okay, let's actually get to emboss. So the first thing we're going to do is pick out a stamp, and I'm working with this cool swirl stamp from Hero Arts. Ink up my stamp, press it down onto paper, get a good crisp image, and remove it. You could hear the stickiness of the ink when I removed the stamp from the pad. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to apply the powder to the image. And to do that, I'm using a piece of scrap paper underneath to catch the excess powder. Because one thing that's really great about embossing is you don't have to waste any powder. It looks like I'm using a lot of powder to apply, but we can save it and put it back into the jar and use every bit of it for another project. So you tap off your excess powder, and I always like to give it a little flick on the back of the card just to remove the excess. And you can see most of the excess came off, but you might have a couple of little spots, especially if it's a humid day like it is here in New Jersey today, where some little flecks of powder stuck, and you can just wipe them away with a brush. Okay, let's take that excess powder, dump it back into the jar, and then we're going to heat emboss. So when you get ready to heat emboss, you want to make sure you're working on a heat-proof surface like our non-stick craft sheet. And we're going to be working with the Ranger Heated Craft tool as well, and we're going to make the magic happen. So for those of you that have never seen embossing before, check it out. You're just going to bring the heat tool down towards the paper and let it warm up the surface of the paper, and you'll notice when the powder has melted, it'll change color and you'll see this really gorgeous gold effect. And you just kind of keep working around one area at a time until it's heated enough to melt. Now that I've finished embossing with the heat tool, you can see the cool effect that you get with this metallic gold powder. Love it. Next, I'll show you how you can use pigment inks with clear embossing powder to get different effects. Today I'm using the Adirondack Earth Tones pigment ink in Wild Plum. Love these inks because they give you a nice opaque coverage, and they're great for embossing. So I'll stamp up my image in the ink, press it down for a nice crisp image, and I'm going to put my scrap paper underneath to catch any excess powder. Just like we did before, pour the excess back into the jar. Quick flick of the finger to get off extra, and then we're going to heat emboss like before with the heated craft tool. And here you see the finished image. Gives it a really cool effect. Ranger also offers embossing powders that have various granulations for different effects. So for instance, if you have a really detailed stamp where using regular embossing powder would be too thick, you could use our super fine embossing powder that allows you to get that detailed look of the stamp. For most applications though, you'll be able to use our regular embossing powders. As you can see with this stamp, it's used for most stamps out there. For thicker applications, we also offer ultra thick embossing enamel, which is great when you want a bold, heavier application for bold stamps.